Welcome to another episode of China Update, where I provide you with the most up-to-date political, economic, and geostrategic analysis on the world's number 2 economy. My name is Tony. Let's jump in. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Just a piece of housekeeping at the beginning of the episode. There may not be an episode tomorrow on Wednesday. As I've discussed in previous episodes, it appears that many viewers begin to drop off around Wednesday or Thursday, and this may be having a serious effect on the algorithm, as YouTube has now stopped showing these videos to new viewers. So it is hoped that by giving viewers a break in the middle of the week, this will help with retention and keep the channel fresh and engaging for you all. Please let me know in the comments what you think of this approach. If this helps going forward, it may be worth having a rest in the middle of the week. If there is no major change, then I will go back to producing episodes every day. Thank you for your understanding and for your feedback. Let's begin with the economy. Chinese banks are seeing a rising wave of mortgage defaults as the nation's housing market struggles, placing pressure on the financial system. Last year, the number of foreclosed homes surged by 43%, with many banks now facing a steep increase in mortgage defaults. Housing prices have continued to fall, accelerating the crisis and challenging the legal system, which struggles to manage the mounting evictions. In cities like Qingdao, for example, foreclosed homes are sometimes auctioned before the current occupants have vacated, leaving buyers to negotiate with residents themselves. Although the scale of foreclosures in China remains smaller than that in the US, the real estate collapse is causing severe financial strains. Banks face not only mortgage defaults but also losses on loans extended to local governments, property developers, and buyers of unfinished apartments that developers abandoned mid-construction. To make matters worse, banks now find that real estate posted as collateral by corporate borrowers has depreciated significantly, undermining loan security. In response, Beijing is urging banks to increase lending as part of broader economic stimulus efforts, though banks themselves are struggling. Alicia Garcia Herrero, NATIE's chief economist for Asia, highlighted that while banks have traditionally supported government policy, they may soon become one of its issues. Despite their financial pressures, China's state-owned banks remain profitable, generating substantial income before accounting for loan losses. However, with banks also a key source of government revenue, significant losses could impact state finances. Foreclosures are particularly delicate in China as the government fears public unrest. Regulations often discourage banks from foreclosing on homeowners, especially given that many empty apartments are secondary residences occupied by friends or relatives rather than family homes. This situation leaves banks with an ever-growing stockpile of auction properties. Many require multiple rounds of bidding, with prices reduced drastically if unsold. In 2023, nearly 390,000 homes faced foreclosure in China, similar to levels seen during the US housing crisis. Many Chinese homeowners who paid large down payments or prepayments still have equity in their properties despite falling prices. Nonetheless, some regret their purchases, feeling trapped as home values decline. For instance, Wang Lei, a Qingdao homeowner speaking to US-based The New York Times, noted that his apartment lost 20% of its value in just 4 years, making him wish he had rented instead. The real estate market in cities like Qingdao face a prolonged downturn, potentially leading to more foreclosures and financial strain across the sector. Next up, the National People's Congress Standing Committee is meeting currently, and it has been reported that increasing local debt limits is on the agenda, with the report on the opening of the meeting stating, quote, "The meeting reviewed the State Council's proposed requesting deliberation on increasing local government debt limits to swap existing hidden debt," end quote. Veteran China analyst Bill Bishop observed on the news, quote, "There are no additional details on this point, and while increasing local debt levels to swap existing hidden debt is very much needed for local governments, that is not the kind of large-scale stimulus that some have been hoping for. It is, of course, possible that the National People's Congress Standing Committee meeting may be reviewing other fiscal measures that they have not yet been disclosed." End quote. Economists at Goldman Sachs, Macquarie Group, and Nomura Holdings Inc. predict lawmakers this week will back at least 1 trillion yuan, $140 billion in quota of special sovereign bond issuance to replenish bank capital. They also expect approval for an increase in local government bond sales earlier this week, or in the coming coming months to swap so-called hidden debt over several years, with forecasts ranging from 6 trillion yen to 10 trillion yen. Huge local government debts are primarily the result of a drop in sales of land, often used as collateral for bank loans, as well as decades of pursuing vanity projects. This has had a knock-on effect on private businesses, belying central government efforts to promote the private sector and revive business confidence. Private businesses in China face growing difficulties as financially strapped local governments increasingly resort to severe legal measures to enhance revenue. A recent case in Shandong highlights this trend. A businessman owed over 230 million yuan for a government-backed project was sentenced to 19 years for contract fraud by a Guizhou court, sparking fresh concerns about targeting private firms under criminal law to mitigate local debt. Rather than paying what is owed, just throw the person in prison. As we have observed in previous episodes, local governments have turned to cross-regional prosecutions to compel businesses to write off debts or pay hefty fines. This strategy, sometimes called distant fishing, sees authorities reaching into other jurisdictions to seize assets, often violating legal principles. Guangzhou alone saw nearly 10,000 businesses affected by such practices in the past year, according to a report by Guangdong's Provincial Research Center. The businessman's case exemplifies the extreme penalties private entrepreneurs face. The court ordered him to return 172 million yuan from the project, claiming it was acquired through bribery, though legal experts testified there was no evidence of fraud. His legal team argued that local authorities disregarded the law to deprive him of property and freedom. Local governments benefit from cross-regional enforcement since seized assets contribute to local budgets and are partially returned to agencies as rewards. This setup encourages collaboration among police, prosecutors, and courts to target high-value cases. China's government has pledged to protect private firms, which are vital for employment and innovation, and recently released a draft law to improve the business environment. However, experts warn that profit-driven enforcement can harm small and medium-sized enterprises, undermining national growth efforts. Calls have grown for judicial reform to limit local authority over law enforcement and ensure fairer treatment for private enterprises. However, with the power of the party and the state over so much of life in China and a very long heritage of local corruption, this is all much easier said than done. Next up, we have one more development to cover, but just quickly, as always, if you're enjoying the episode, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe if you've not done so already. I do not know why the algorithm is not happy with China Update. Over the last couple of months, the number of new viewers that the episodes are shown to has dropped by 95%. Hopefully this is just a seasonal matter and that this will turn around in the future, but in the meantime, liking, subscribing and sharing is probably the only way in which this channel will be shown to new people. Thank you so much. With just a year left for Beijing to meet its goal of becoming an international innovation hub, only 22,000 foreigners are living and working long-term in the city, a significant drop from the 37,000 reported a decade ago. According to a recent report by the Beijing International Talent Exchange Association, foreigners now make up just 0.2% of Beijing's workforce and 0.1% of its population, highlighting a decline in long-term foreign professionals. This is, of course, in sharp contrast to places such as Silicon Valley, where about 70% of workers were born outside the United States in 2016. Since the end of the COVID-19 pandemic, the composition of Beijing's foreign community has shifted. Americans and Europeans now account for just 12% of the foreign workforce, down from 16% in 2019, while Africans make up 31%, up from 26%. Similarly, professionals from Russia and Eastern Europe have grown from 11 to 16%. However, foreigners across the board, across all groups, have all dropped substantially over the last 10 years. Despite Beijing's ambitions to become a technology innovation center by 2025, only 13% of expatriates are working in scientific or engineering roles, while 30% are in administrative or teaching positions. However, more expats in Beijing now hold advanced degrees, with over 40% possessing at least a master's degree in 2023. To boost international recruitment, the government has introduced incentives, including Tier A working visas for high-skilled roles, with 20% of expatriates qualifying, an increase of 13 percentage points since 2018. Yet, attracting foreign talent remains a challenge. As the European Union Chamber of Commerce in China noted, quote, "One significant trend observed is the decoupling between global headquarters and China operations over the past 2 years," end quote, creating operational challenges and discouraging talent from relocating to China. Additionally, the American Chamber of Commerce reports growing concerns over US-China geopolitical tensions affecting workforce decisions. I can also say anecdotally that the tightening government control over all areas of life, as well as a slow building ethno-nationalism over the last half-decade, have been cited to me as reasons for people wanting to leave. With all the talk of China being open for business and open to the world, the grim reality is the number of foreigners voting with their feet by being in the capital has collapsed by almost 50% in a decade. The number of Europeans and Americans has dropped by almost 60%, with a foreign-born population of just 0.1%. This says a lot about how attractive and welcoming China is perceived to be by foreigners. Okay, that is today's episode of China Update. Have a good Tuesday, and I will see you all either tomorrow or on Thursday.